Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk Fishing, and thanks for being loyal listeners all along. We are at our 25th episode today. And we're heading up north to my favorite place, the best fishery in the country, if you ask me, on the Missouri River, Lake Sakakawea in North Dakota. Been there half a dozen times. Have had a lot of success on this lake. Just love it. The scenery is beautiful. I've seen moose every time I've been there. The fishing is phenomenal. You can catch them however you want, wherever you want, any time of the year. Lake Sakakawea is always going, and it has got a load of big fish. So if you like jig fishing, you like pulling lead, bouncer, scoping, whatever it is, man, this lake is the place to go. It is a beautiful fishery. Great people up there. It's just phenomenal. So we're gonna go talk to my good friend and the local guide service up there, who's just been crushing it year after year. Matt Liebel, Liebel's Guide Service. He's coming up next, so stay tuned. We're gonna break down Lake Sakakawea and a little bit more about Matt and his guide service and just guiding in general. We got two guides, just kind of talking guiding, and the National Walleye Tour's next stop is up here on Lake Sakakawea. So we're gonna get a little insight on that and how we think that might go. So stay tuned for Matt Liebel.
A little bit about some high performance products that I use, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love it too. It's the Seaguar Smackdown braid. There's three things about this thin diameter braid that I just absolutely love. One, it's tough as nails. Two, longest casting, smoothest braid I've ever used. The 8-strand braid, tubular form, just comes off those reels super smooth, long cast. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It's awesome. And three, it's super sensitive. No matter what kind of lure or jig I'm throwing out there, I can tell. I've grass, weeds, rocks, sand bottom. I can feel it all right through there into my rod. The stuff is extremely sensitive. So Smackdown comes in two colors, high vis and stealth gray. Get yourself some of this stuff and you're gonna get yourself some more of these. Check them out at seaguar.com.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. We are heading to my favorite fishery on this wonderful planet Earth up north in North Dakota, to Lake Sakakawea, and we're talking to the mastermind of that fishery himself, Mr. Matt Liebel over here with Liebel's Guide Service. Good friend Matt, and guy knows a little bit about Lake Sakakawea, so we're going to pick his brain, see what's happening up there, see how the bite's going, how the guidance been, and we might get into some guide stories here, because between the two of us, sounds like we've got plenty to talk about. So what is happening, my friend? What's going on up in North Dakota?
Oh, it's going good. We're in July now, and I finally decided today I'm not bringing minnows with anymore. I dumped the last of them out because we had kept water temperatures. We finally over 65 this morning again, and we're staying there. I think we're finally there where we got some water temperatures and can keep some, a little bit consistent fishing. It's been an interesting spring and early summer, I guess, to say, with the water temperatures and getting everything going. It's just, our water temperatures have been so cold. I don't think I've ever had minnows after the 15th of June in my boat. Just talking fatheads, not creek chubs or anything like that.
Yeah.
I had them in the boat yesterday and I didn't bring them today.
Yeah, it's time for you to get that nasty warm bedding and mud and dirt all over in your boat now.
Yeah, finally, I think Saturday, we got the first one on a minnow on a fathead, and then it turned to crawlers, and everything was crawlers after that. So and most days it hadn't been crawlers, get a couple here and there on crawlers yet, but it's finally starting to go at least a little bit. It's been a weird one.
Wow. I kick them out about 50, 55. I'm done. I'm done with the minnows. Usually when I leave Chamberlain, come to Lewis Clark, that's it. No more minnows. I wish, because they're a lot cleaner and much easier to use than crawlers. I hate crawlers.
So I don't mind crawlers. I've been really trying to start to use the the Northland eye candy crawlers. Those work really well, and they work for a lot of fish. So it's really nice starting to use those. But even earlier this year, those have been tough. They aren't hitting crawlers yet. So it's I keep hitting or using fatheads, and it's I can't take them out because they just keep putting fish in the boat rather than the crawlers and stuff. So I've kind of, my hands, like usually I wear sun gloves and my hands are all burnt up
All right.
now because I hate digging in the live well with the sun gloves and then they're wet all day and then my hands are wet, and has been cool. Like it was 48 degrees and overcast and windy on Saturday morning again. So it's been a weird one. So
Yeah, you don't quite have the eyes like I got, and it's I mean, I'm just South Dakota and you're North Dakota, but yeah, 48. We're well above that. I think it was 63 in the camper the other morning, but I'm wearing my sun gloves and I'm dipping them in the live well and they're dry 5 minutes later down here. But like I said, we got out of minnow season a long time ago. I've had people jump in a boat like, we got to use minnows. I'm like, nah, I ain't been minnows in here since early May. There won't be until September, most likely, unless it's creek chub or something like that, willow cats. But like, nope, it's just crawlers and eye candy. There is a couple baits that never leave. I got one rod rigged up with an eye candy grub and another one with the Z-Man jerk shad. That does it. Those rods, that's what they have on them and never comes off all year long.
The grub has been really good this year. And said even the crawler or the jig crawler. I just got a bunch of the leeches, so we'll see if we can put those to use too. But those are pretty cool baits. The way you can take and stretch them out. And like last year at the end of the season in mid July, late July and August and stuff, when they were biting pretty good still. And I mean, I think I put four crawlers on gulp, or not gulp, but eye candy jig crawlers on the 4 rods the guys had in, and we caught 100 fish that day, or 75 to 100 fish, whatever it was. We just crushed them, and I never baited a hook again. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's why the Z-Man stuff doesn't come off. They both have the Lastec technology in it. Don't mix them with other baits. If you haven't learned that lesson yet, it'll eat them out. I'm sure the eye candy it probably does because the Z-Man, because that Lastec does that.
They say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but that stuff is awesome. I have a Z-Man, a diesel minnow on. It's been on there like 3 or 4 years, and it's caught 100-something redfish, on a chatterbait, and it's still good. That is, I've been breaking a lot of jigs off and losing them that way, but I'm not losing them any other way.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot. I mean, I had to go to Shields Day. I think about $100-some worth of jigs while I'm waiting for my jig order to come in, but I need them tomorrow, and it's going to show up later this week, and next week I got 2 or 3 orders because I was like, that wasn't enough. So I went back 2 days later and ordered more. And I'm like, I need more. I'm running out of tungsten. I'm catching fish on a spot, but it's eating up a lot of jigs. And I'm like, damn it. So I'm using a tungsten. I'll give the clients a round ball jig and a grub on it. And it's working good, or even a live crawler. But the things we do, right?
Yes, that's correct. So.
And the cost and expense, but when you get on something good like that whether it's a particular bait that you don't have to bait all day, that's it. You're just going to catch more fish. I mean, you're not digging up worms, digging out minnows. It's like, all right, you missed it, keep it out there. It gives those clients obviously the confidence in pitching plastics, which most of them don't have.
Yeah, they don't. They're like, we're using what? We're using plastics. Like, you got to use live bait to fish walleyes. I mean, plastics are just as bad as crankbaits. When we talk about crankbait addiction, right. Or you warn them, like, be careful if you get into this, because you're going to end up with a whole lot of stuff, and a whole lot of tackle boxes full of stuff. And plastics are the same way as crankbaits. Like, you got to have a few of the color. Like, at least with plastics, I guess you can buy a pack of 5 or whatever they come in now, rather than buying one at a time. I was just telling them yesterday, the one little tiny money badger crankbait, like the smallest one up shallow, was catching fish, and the lady picked it out and it was just crushing them. And I'm like, this is how it happens. I only have one of those too, because of that color. I had a few of the other color, but I was like, this is how it happens right here, because that's the color that's catching them. And now this is why you buy 2.
I have one of them.
You should buy 3 of every color, just so we have it. Just in case.
That's funny you said, because I had to buy more money badgers today because I had one of the color that was crushing them and a pike took it. And so I had to switch, or I had 3 of these other ones and I caught some. I'm like, so I had to go to Shields Day, and I've got some ordered, but I'm like, I need them tomorrow. So I'm like, oh, there it is. Boom, boom. Yep. Grabbed a couple, 3, 4 of those, and a couple, 3, 4 more of the other ones. And eventually you're going to have one, and you're going to throw it on that one day. And like always, that's the one that's, working, and you got 4 lines out and one's catching all of them. It's
that's
inevitable.
Correct.
Oh, it's expensive too. Those things are like $7 a piece or something, and
Yeah,
it's getting costly to do this stuff. So
it is. It is, and it's kind of, well, like I said, going back to the, with the forward facing sonar stuff. Like, I mean, that's not so much for guiding. I don't have a lot of people asking to do that right now, but a few want to do it. But just back to some of the stuff you hear, like them guys talking about, just a jig and a crawler. Just now, tungsten jigs are expensive, but lead heads aren't too bad, and you got a whole bunch of them, so you can go back to that and still catch a lot of fish
Yep.
sometimes too with that, and not have to have all the fanciest stuff either. But
yeah, it's hard to beat just a jig and a crawler. So when the going gets tough, or you just need to catch some fish, put that jig and crawler on, and you don't need. I mean, I'll use a forward facing to say, all right, throw it over there, or just
yep,
work this area, and someone will see it, and I'll show them. I'm like, you don't even need to worry about watching it. Just trust me. There's fish there. Throw it, and here's the cadence. We're dealing with flooded stuff down here, so we got dirty water, so it's we're slowing things down. And going to money baiters and salmon hornets with rattles, something to that can make a lot of noise to attract those fish to get them to bite, and it's working. But still, go find the cleanest water you can, and you're gonna do much better. So
yeah, we've been on Sakakawea, we have the river runoff coming in, and it's down, it's dirty, even down to around Bear Den and stuff. I haven't been much further between Bear Den and Pouch Point. I've been at Pouch Point and further up into the arm, but I haven't been on that river section between Pouch and Skunk, or Skunk and Bear Den and stuff. But we still have dirty water over by Newtown, so it's the same type of thing, trying to run some lures that are a little bit louder. And like I said, the Van Hook arm hasn't taken off like it normally does in June. Like it's you're catching some fish, but you got to work for them each day. It's not easy fishing like everybody's used to. So everybody's looking around like, what's going on here? And it's like, well, we actually have to fish some today. And,
it's cold. It's been cold.
Yeah. So we're, but it's like I said, same thing. We got some dirty water. We're jumping back and forth between, and wind all the time.
Yeah.
So we're jumping over to the river side. So last couple of days, big southeast winds. Well, fishing the Van Hook arm with clients in a big southeast wind isn't what you would call enjoyable. When the winds or the water
not at all.
So we run over to the riverside and fish, fish out of the Newtown Marina, the casino area, and said it's dirty water, but there's fish there. You just got to get them to bite. So,
yeah, that's Lake Francis case was kind of like that. This early in year two, it was people were there, and it really just got going, or kind of mid-June, early June maybe. But normally it would have just been on fire on the lower end. I mean, the Chamberlain bite up north was decent in the spring, but not as good as normal. And guys were fishing league nights, and there's a local tournament there every weekend, and they're just like, we can see the fish, but they wouldn't go at all. Yep. Everybody's really struggling. Exactly. Then all of a sudden, I think it was the Whetstone tournament, and that would have been first, second weekend in June, and then all of a sudden, like 35 pounds, won it. That's there's three guys in a boat there in those tournaments. I'm like, oh, it finally went. They're like, yeah, the water finally warmed up. The local biologist says he thinks a lot of the fish didn't spawn. A lot of the females retained their eggs, and so they were just in a funk.
Same thing. Same thing. We've cut up some that still have eggs in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a few that will reabsorb them into their body. I'm not buying it on that big of fishery down there that entire 90 miles of lake was just sucking because of some females didn't spawn. I don't know. I mean, there was. Whatever. I mean, they're looking for any kind of excuse because guys are like, I don't get it. I just can't catch them. I can see them on the graph. They're there. They're already in the trees. They're where they're supposed to be this time of year. The water wasn't super cold, but they were just in a funk. Then lower where I'm at, Lewis and Clark was actually super good earlier. Granted, it's 50 miles further south, but the water warmed up real fast. And now it's the same temp that it's been for literally the last month and a half. It's just muddy and dirty now. But now Lake Francis cases is going, and that's no more a concern. Lake Walleye is going. Sounds like Sakakawea is really starting to pick up. But yeah, we got warm early ice off in a sense, maybe not for you guys up there. So it looked like everything's going to be way ahead in most of the country, and it is. But it seemed we're in July, and it's 70 today. It's not warm. It was cold this morning. I think it was 60 something in the house. So
Yeah, we had the
Kind of
same thing.
weird.
We had ice off really early, or I mean, not crazy early, but earlier than normal. And then it warmed up, and like it was around May 15th or so. There was our firemen's tournament that was up here on the north end of the lake out of Lewis and Clark State Park here, and they pre-fishing the day before. It was a 75, 80-degree day in the middle of May, and it was water temperature started off at on the surface at like 56, 57 that morning, and then by the end of the day they were in the mid 60s at the surface. Obviously it wasn't below that, but it had warmed up quite a bit at the surface. Well, then the tournament got postponed today because we had 40-mile-an-hour winds for Saturday, so and colder. So the next morning, the water temp or Sunday morning, take off and head down towards the Newtown area, and we got 54-degree water temperatures. And since then, it was a week and a half ago, we were still seeing upper 50s for water temperatures, and that's just got us all sorts of fish all sorts of in a funk. We're seeing them. I think if you want to see a forward-facing sonar, that it's not, people that talk about the forward-facing sonar that's cheating this and that, like you can come watch a lot of these fish up here, and you can figure out that it's not cheating, because you can see them, but you can throw that thing right at them and drop it on their head, and they don't care.
They ain't moving. They're confused.
They just sit there and look at it, and they're like, "Nope, sorry." It's been a weird year, and like everybody's kind of said, wondering what's going on, and we just haven't had consistent weather for 3 days in a row. Like we had thunderstorms again last night and thunderstorms the other night. Like we just need some consistent weather to get those fish to go. And because it's funny, when you clean them, the ones you're cleaning, that stomachs are empty. So like but they're still fat. They're full of fat and all that stuff, in good condition. There's plenty of smelt around, but they're not putting the feed bag on, even just them on themselves. So
yeah, we haven't even had our mayflies are usually, hatching, and I'll see some in the bellies or the mouths as the walleyes are in the mud digging that larva out. The fish have been in those spots, but they haven't been any mayflies. I mean, there's been lake flies, and there's clearly some little bug hatches, but there's a surprising amount of, like, I don't know if they're shiners or what there are that are going. I think the drum have just spawned. Most of the catfish are spawning, if not spawned. Yeah, it's just weird, but you hit the 3-day weather thing, and that's kind of been my rule of thumb always. 3 days of stable weather, and that's what it takes to just boom. They're gonna fire. It may go to crap after that. You're gonna get one really good day, but you're probably experiencing the bite windows when you're getting them. But that's it. They're only feeding for an hour or two, versus you can catch them all day.
Yep, that's exactly it. And yesterday was a great example of that. You get into a spot, we had 9 pretty quickly back and forth, and it's like, okay, now we're finally starting to see what we expect. And then they were done, and it was pick off one every little bit. Just sometimes I wonder too, like you go through and you get the fish that are going to bite right away. Like you get 1 or 2 or 3. Like we've got quite a few doubles this year for the way the bite has been. Like we'll have 2 fish on at a time, and I'm netting 2 fish in the same net and all that type of stuff with the clients. And it's like we go forever. Yeah. Last week, one day we had 1 fish, and it was, I don't know, it was 10:30, 11 o'clock, or 10:30 about it was. And cause we fished till 11, and we had 1 fish in the boat, and we came over a spot. We were trolling crankbaits, and we got a quad. All 4 rods went off. And we had 4 of them. We had 1 before that. And then we had his limit. We had the one guy's limit, and that was all he had. So it was just him. And we went down a little farther, got 3 or 4 more keepers. We let go. And I was like, he's like, let's fish till 11. He wanted to hit the road early. And I said, okay, we'll run back over that spot again, see if we can get any more. We didn't get a fish off that spot again. Turned right back around on it. It's like, we're so used to on Sakakawea, when you get them, and you see them there too. It's not like you're only seeing 2 fish on the graph. You're seeing them down there, and you go and get a couple, and you're like, all right, let's turn around and go right back through them. You're better off just leaving and going to the next spot and picking 2 more next spot and just pick off 1 or 2 spot and jump around all day, and you'll catch just as many, I think, as you will if you sit and grind on them.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, you have a lake that's got a lot of spots, so you can do
Oh
that.
yeah,
So
and I think we're so spoiled. We have it's such a good fishery up here, and it's in such good shape. I think back, it was COVID, it was 2020, and that year it was a little off. That year, the bite, we had a whole bunch of small fish, and guiding wise, it was tough because we were trying to find, we were catching a bunch of 12 to 13 inches, but to find those,
Yep.
15 to 19 inches to eat was really hard. And everybody's like, what's going on? They were so there. And I had a pretty good tournament year that year, and until the NWT came. But I had a pretty good tournament year that year, and I was on some bigger fish that I could stay on, but otherwise the eaters were really tough. And it's just weird how it kind of protects itself, almost like the lake once in a while, just like, yeah, we're not going to give out as much as we're used to. And then us as fishermen sit here and
Right.
complain, like, what's going on? Like, but I mean, the year after that and the last three have been phenomenal, like just crazy, crazy good. And said you have to earn your fish a little bit. You're like, everybody's looking around at each other like, what happened? Did somebody clean all the fish? Or it's like, no, they're still there. You can see them. Like, that's the thing with especially with the forward facing sonar stuff now too. Like, I mean, you could do it with side imaging and all that stuff, but now with forward facing sonar, everybody can see them even more. Like, it's not hard to put your bait or your transducer down and look around and be like, oh, those are fish. Look at all those fish. They're everywhere. And it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing with forward facing sonar to me, is how many fish you don't see go under your boat that actually, and on the reservoirs here, we've been, we always think about how we can fish right underneath the boat. We fish a heavy bottom bouncer and
Right.
fish it right underneath the boat in 8 feet of water, and they don't care, and you can catch fish. But it's amazing at how many fish actually still scatter, like putting that facing forward, and you watch it because you can see a little bit back too. So you should see it's like, all right, it should be coming on the transducer now, or they're 20 feet in front of you and then they disappear. And how many actually scatter outside and spook from the boat, even though you're catching them right below the boat.
Yeah, they're not all smart. So their brain's pretty small, but I've been, same thing. I'm running 2-ounce bouncers in 4 to 5 foot of water just because of current, and going pretty,
Yeah.
Pulling them at 1.4, 1.5 and running that and watching the bouncer and watching them. And it's like, it is a nonstop flow of fish right behind it, where you can see some on side image, but not near as many as you see. I mean, once you put that
Yeah.
down, I have another spot I've been, that I normally wouldn't fish. I drive by with side scan, and it's got to be pretty loaded to stop and fish. Well, I've been driving side scan and go, there's a few, but then I put the trolling motor down and scan around, look, and went, there's way more than a few, then boom,
Yeah.
Spotlock, throw a bobber or whatever out, and you're like, boom, you're done at 8:30. I'm like, I wouldn't even have fished this until I see a lot more, on side scan. But once I put that down, I can see those ones in the rocks. I can see it just, the ones that are super, I don't know, you just see so much more, and you're like, there's a lot of fish. There's a lot more fish in these systems than anybody, I think, is probably aware of.
Yeah. And it's like just crazy. Like some of the spots I've stopped and, like you said, stopped and fished, but we normally would just leave them. Like, I'd be like, nah, I'm out of here. This is nothing.
Yeah, it's not enough. There's fish, but
Not enough.
I
Not
want more.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, and all the time, like, we're looking for the bite that's going to, put a whole bunch of fish in the boat as guides. That's what we're looking to do, to keep on that hottest bite. And sometimes it's like, I've driven through a lot of areas, and I mean, we had a big group we had 6 people it was on Friday, and I pulled the one other guy, Wade, he pulled in, and he was like, I'm going to go start here. And I'm like, okay. And as I was driving by, I was going to run further south from there. And the wind was blowing in, and I'm like, all right, I better stop and at least look at this flat and see what's happening. And I drove around. I didn't mark very many. I didn't put the forward facing in, but I didn't mark very many. I left and I went to the next spot, and he texted me as soon as I pulled into the next spot and started fishing. He goes, got 2 in the box already. And I'm like, I didn't see that many fish. And then I bet it was 20 minutes later, he texted me a 28.5 that they caught. And I was like, oh my God, we should have stopped and fished. I mean, that was the only big one we got that day, but it's like, I drove through it, but it was a big flat too. So I just quick checked it. I didn't drive the whole thing. It's a mile long. So I didn't spend the whole
Right.
time driving it just to look. And he started in a little bit different spot and found those fish where they were. And
No,
yeah,
you do a lot the same thing I do. I just run up there, side image, take a quick peek. You slow down, you come up playing, you just go a little ways. You're like, nope, because they're going to be right here, and you don't see them when you take off. You're like, I could probably
yep,
drop in and make a pass, and maybe we'll pick some up, and then all of a sudden that pod you're used to is 100 yards off, and you just completely miss it.
yep,
Like
that's exactly what happened.
like we got other guides out, and we'll break. It's nice when you have 2 or 3 other guides out with you, and you can find that bite quicker, or one of you missed it, or he went here, you went there, and it's like, no, they're further west, or vice versa. And then everybody gets on the fish quick. So we had skipped over the whole intro who Matt is, because that's what I guess guides do. We just start talking about guided fishing stuff and fishing. So for those of you that don't know, Matt, just tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're doing. I know you got a new career changes happening here shortly, and then talk about Liebel's guide service.
Yeah, I'm Matt Liebel. I've lived in Western North Dakota pretty much my entire life. I guess if you consider Botno for 1 year, that's not really what we would consider Western North Dakota, but I guess it's still in my new territory, which we called Northwest on my new job. But anyways, grew up in Watford City, fishing Lake Sakakawea all the time. My parents have a lake place. It was my grandma and grandpa's lake place down at Deepwater Bay, and now they bought it. So they have it, and so we're been fishing anywhere from way up on the west end all the way down to Deepwater Bay, and then I've been over to the east end too now for fishing tournaments and things like that since 2010 was when we first started fishing the Governor's Cup out there, and so I've fished pretty much all up and down the lake and seen a lot of different stuff, high water, low water. I mean, 2 different record highs, a record low, in those 15-year time span. We saw a record high, record low, record high. So I've seen a lot of stuff change on Sakakawea, and it's like I said, I've been here a lot. Now I live in Williston. I have my wife Amy and 3 kids. Mason, he'll be 11 and here in September, and Bridget will be 7, or she is 7. She'll be 8 in March, and then Lincoln, my youngest one, and he's just getting into the fish. He wants to go play with the creek chubs hourly or so. He wants to go play with the creek chubs.
Well, good. He's your bait checker. So good.
Yeah, he's 21 months. He'll be 2 in here in September, and he we can consider it my bait checker when you grab him and the guts are no longer in him when he's done playing with them. Whatever. But this one's, I don't think, my daughter goes, I don't think that one's is alive anymore. Yeah, I think the guts hanging out of it are a pretty good sign it's dead. And so he wants to go play with them all the time, and go. This other day when I had a couple days off, and then I started a 6-day stretch here, and I got the day off tomorrow, but and coming up for the 4th. But I know the first day I was back guiding, and Lincoln was just mad that I wasn't there. He wanted to go on the boat and play with the fish, and so he might be my fishing buddy. The other 2, they go fishing. They'll go with me, but they don't love it as much as I do. That's for sure. But I was a teacher here in Williston for the past 15 years. I taught 8th grade earth science and 7th grade life science. So I was a science teacher and teaching middle schoolers. And, if you can deal with middle schoolers, I think you could handle a lot of guide clients. They can be, most middle schoolers students are great. You hear a lot of, just a little education plug, but you hear a lot about kids these days and this and that. Most kids are great. And, so I'd say more of the adults' expectations have changed, or things like that have changed a little bit. And do we have kids that are tough? Yeah, we do. But it relates to the same thing as, most of our guide clients are great to deal with. And then you have a few that come in with expectations that are unrealistic or whatever. And then, same type of thing. So, if you can deal with middle schoolers, I think you can deal with guiding and handling those people. So
yeah, it's a good correlation.
Easier. Guiding's easier than teaching a bunch of kids. That's for sure.
Yeah, I had a boatload of kids the last 2 days, and man, do they ask a lot of questions. So,
I had the same
some stuff in
girl
Shields today, and the guy was.
I had this girl, she was 8 the last 3 days, and we got her a 25.5 incher today. That was pretty cool for her to reel in that. But she was asking all sorts of questions. She wanted to try the jig wrap, and I'm like, it's tiring. You're going to have to really work at it. And she worked at it for about 3 minutes, and she's like, you were right. It was really hard. Yeah, that's not an easy bite to get going. I had her on forward facing sonar. I was watching it, and I was like, she had a couple chase, but she didn't get him to hit it. I was really hoping she was going to get one on one of those jig wraps, but yeah, they're great. So said I've been taught for 15 years. Actually in 2011, my tournament partner and I, Tori Hill, and we won the North Dakota Governor's Cup. And then I took that money that I won and put that into and started my guide service. So I started my guide service in the summer of 2012. So I've been guiding from 2012 until now, 2024. So I think this will be my 13th summer guiding. And a lot of summers have been very busy doing that. So we've been started out just myself and built up. Now I have 4 other guides that I use pretty regularly, and I have a few others that obviously I can call in, and we've had 7, 8, 9 boats going at a time. Some days when we got some big groups and things like that. So we've been set in. The guides I've been able to bring on have been excellent, and they know how to catch fish too, and we've done feel like we've done a real good job of getting people on fish and figuring out Lake Sakakawea, and it's just an awesome fishery, and there's the big fish potential isn't maybe what we look at of Oahe and Fort Peck, but I think part of that is we haven't unlocked it yet either. We haven't unlocked it as much, and some of that stuff, like there's still a lot of secrets out there. And we haven't figured them all out. And I think some of the forward-facing sonar is going to show some more of those. I don't know if I'm going to be the one to figure it out, because it's hard to go figuring new things out when you're guiding. I think a lot of people that think about tournaments and stuff, they're like, well, guiding is not tournament fishing. It's a completely different game. And it's like, to try, like I'm this forward facing sonar and listening to him talk about, I was listening to the Northland podcast this morning. It was one of Tom Wynn's interview. I think I just searched Tom Wynn on Apple Podcasts and start trying to, listen to everything that he talks about to pick up something different. That dude just catches them. He's good. But he's talking about how he let one sit, he just lets the bait sit there. And I saw them doing this when they were here for the AIM shootout in late May or early June there. I saw him just let that bait sit there and just hold his rod still. And I'm like, what is he doing? Like, he's just sitting there holding it. And then he caught a big one. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then I listened to that one. He explained it a little bit. And I'm like, you can't do that on a guide trip. You can't go and sit and just throw that at a fish and let that sit there and just be like, so like I can pick off fish with a jig and wrap and spot them out there and cast to it and pick them off, but like not like that, not like they talk about. So it's like I said, guiding and tournament fishing are two completely different things. And it's a hard switch, and everybody's like, well, where all the fish are and this and that. It's like, yeah, but that's not tournament fish. Yeah, not the tournament fish. I can go catch you a whole bunch of eaters and said go try and find a big one here and there, but it's a whole different ball game. So, but yeah, we've had a great run, so hopefully it continues.
You guys don't get the time. What do you do on your day off? It's I go fishing. I got to stay on that bite. Unless you got a tournament coming up, maybe we'll go try to find some of those big fish if you have any time, downtime. But like you said, you just on a 6-day run, and when you start it, guiding means 5, 6 a.m. You're up doing whatever you got to do. Sometimes there's, you got to drive a ways to wherever you're going, picking your clients up, getting them fishing all day, cleaning fish, getting back, getting ready for the next day. Now you're 10, 12 hours into your day. You're like, I'm not going back out to go play around for a couple, 3 hours till sunset. I'm wiped out. I'm living in a
No.
camper, so I can do that if I have a half day, but it's like, no, I'm good. I'll just go, we'll go out tomorrow and do whatever. But you're on a much bigger fishery than I have, so you have a lot more, water to cover, but you're right. It's so different from tournament fishing to guide fishing, as we have two different goals: 5 big fish and a lot of fish and a lot of action.
Yep. And it's like today, even today's guide trip I had, we went looking for big fish because they had been here for a few days. They had their possession limit. They weren't going to keep anymore. They couldn't legally keep anymore anyways. So we're like, well, let's go look for picture fish. Let's go look for some big fish and see what we can find. And it was, the action was a lot slower. And I was like, it's going to be slower. Like, we're not going to catch as many. You don't just pull up onto a spot and you're going to have a bunch of 23+ inch fish sitting there like you do,
Right.
like you go pull up on any other spot and you have those eater fish. They're just not as many of them. That's just the way it is. So, and the clients knew that. They knew where they were prepared, and it's like, this is how it goes. But you said with, I'm up, usually alarm goes off around 4:30 in the morning, depending on what time I'm meeting them. Anywhere between 4 and 5 in the morning, I'm up, and most days I'm back, between 5 and 6:30 at night. So it's it's 12, 13 hours every day. And you just do that day after day, and it's a lot. And then, the next day, like you said, you get a day off. It's like, do you want to go fishing? And I mean, I'll go fishing anytime.
You want to?
Yeah. I want to go fishing. I want to go try things and figure new things out too. At the same time, we got wife and kids and family and stuff too. So we got to keep those things too. So we got to play with them, take them out. And then you take them out, and it's like, well, you're back to guiding again. You can't go search for the big fish, grind on that with them. So it's like, we're back to the same thing. So it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is to keep on the big fish necessarily all the time out here. But there's a couple spots. I think we know a couple spots that always have some big fish too. So they're no secret.
Yep. Yeah, you talk about that fishery, and Oahu's obviously putting out some big fish, and it's putting out some big fish now. And Green Bay does, Lake Erie does. Sakakowea's got a good population of big fish, but it is the 3rd largest reservoir, right behind Hawaii.
Yep.
Oh, we have 500. How many miles of shoreline? I'm getting it confused. For instance, case I think that's 507.
1,700 or something like that.
That sounds about right.
It's more coastline or more shoreline than the coastline of California, whatever that is. I know that. I think it's 1,700 miles of shoreline or something like that.
And the lake itself's 130 long or something.
Yeah, it depends on how they measure it or where they consider the start. When they had the NWT here in 2017, we were making runs from Garrison up to Lund's Landing Tobacco Gardens. That was 110 miles.
10.
You can add, to the dam from Garrison 5-6 miles, and then you can add, up to Lewis and Clark State Park another 10.
10.
So you're looking at 126 miles there. I mean, you can consider it the reservoir a little further up. And then the other part, like I hear a lot of them say 180 miles long. They must count the Little Missouri Arm as part of that length in there.
Yeah, that's big.
That would be where they get, because there's no way it's 180 miles. It'd be about 180 miles from the dam to the state line. But by the time you get up to Williston, it's a river. It's a river, not a reservoir anymore. So
a little muddy river up there.
Yep.
It's a huge place, and big fish potential and just a lot of fish, but it's like any place that ebb and flows. It's gone through its years of floods and washing all the bait. It used to be great, and then it kind of was under the radar for a while. Then I don't know when it was, about 12 or 13 maybe, it kind of started back up and started being on everybody's radar again, like, hey, this place is putting out some big fish.
Yep. So it was, like the 80s were really a lot of big fish in the 80s. And then kind of didn't see as many big fish. We had high water years in the 90s, 97, we set record highs and really good fishing still then. And then from 97 to 2007, we had declining water and record lows. And started to see the fish get real skinny. I had a 30-incher that weighed under 8 pounds. It was like 7.8 pounds or something. I caught it in a tournament, which was good, but
Right. It's an egg tournament, great.
It wasn't an AIM tournament. AIM wasn't around yet, but it still was the big
Yeah.
fish of the tournament. So, but we caught a lot of skinny fish in that. That was in 2007. That one was, and we caught a lot of skinny fish then in 7. But then the winters of 9, 10, and 11 were really, really heavy winters, and we had a lot of runoff, and that flooded. We worry about water levels, but the big thing is that like the biologists talk about is you need some low water years to get some of that vegetation growing up, and then when that floods, it's such good habitat for those fish to spawn and the young of the year to grow and hide and that type of stuff. So when that flooded, when it went from record lows in 07 to record highs again in 2011, that displaced a lot of fish and into a lot of trees and flooded vegetation, and it was an absolute struggle to get them out of there. And that's why it kind of dropped off. Fishing was tough. Fishing was really tough. But like we said, we won the Governor's Cup. We found out how to get inside the trees and fish the 4 to 6 feet of water inside the trees. And it was kind of sketchy getting through there and some of that stuff with the boat. But when you figured it out, they were in there, and that's where you could get them. But it was weird that, you think you could slip bobber them like Devil's Lake in the trees, and I couldn't figure that out completely. But it was, kind of a tougher little time there. But then all those years of that flooded vegetation was just great for reproduction of everything. And now we're reaping all those benefits still, and we've had good water levels, and it's still, now, as I said, it's still really, really good. Water levels are looking good. I didn't see the forecasts. Usually they come out on the first of the month. I didn't see it. I looked at it here just a little while ago. I didn't see the new forecasts yet, but it should be good.
Yeah, hopefully they're good. Those high water years are pretty important for the fisheries. In the trees, the Harlan County Reservoir in south central Nebraska goes through that a lot as a reservoir because they're irrigating Republican rivers, dumping in, and that water's, they're sending it down to Kansas, and Nebraska fight over that all the time. But the high water years, same deal. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's fishing's horrible." It's not horrible. You just can't get to the fish. Once people figured that out, and I'd same thing. I tied for like 9th in the Governor's Cup down there and went in to like 8 feet of water and tied to the tree and dropped a giant crick jump straight over the boat. And you just put 20+ pound test on, and you got them, and you just had to get them up out of there, immediately. And it was the same deal. Once people figured out that you just got to pull into, you just got to push, whatever, go into those trees or go into that 1 to 4 foot of water and the weeds, whatever, they're in there feeding if you can get there and get there and just, you can't, trolling. I used to troll through some of it after a few years of ice pulling some trees. It got a little bit better. A little trick I didn't do a lot would take the front hook off the crankbait so you could pull through those trees and it wouldn't get snagged up near as bad. If you're going to troll through trees, you're just going to lose some baits. But ideally, literally just take a rope and tie to a tree. And, I remember using a 1 ounce jig head to keep the giant crick chub, from swimming around too much because it was going to wrap you around a tree limb. And as soon as you got something, there was no waiting. It was just get it and horse it up and using like a 9-foot broomstick handled rod almost just to get them up and out of there immediately. Sounds like you're doing the same thing up there. And then after a while, those trees kind of fade away, and then you get a low year, and those willows grow back up. Mother Nature will work it all out. She always does.
Yeah, she does, and that's exactly it. And the fluctuating water level, when you get water rising, it changes everything, and those fish move up into those places, and you got to figure out how to get them. And sometimes it's pretty dang tough to get them out of there, or figure out how to get them out of there and that type of stuff too. So like I said, the lake mother nature,
how hot it is,
protect yourself. Yeah.
I don't care how hot it is. If it's high water, they're going to be in that 1 to 3 foot of new, fresh, highly oxygenated weed growth water because that's where the bait is. It's going to be 100 degrees out. That's
100 degrees flat calm. You can catch them in there for sure. So.
Yep. They're shallow all the time, and if they're shallow, they're there for one reason, I always say, and it's because there's food. They're not very smart, and they're kind of like a buck in a rut. When there's food around, it's one thing on their mind, right? That's all they do is eat, swim around, and reproduce once a year. So it's pretty simple.
That's correct.
We like to overcomplicate it. So Sakakawea, obviously just a huge, phenomenal place. The guiding is going good. You're busy. People can find you over at liebelsguideservice.com.
Yep. Yeah, we're on liebelsguideservice.com. We are on Facebook, just Liebel's Guide Service, Instagram, Liebel's Guide. Haven't got the old TikTok yet. Maybe sometime. I don't know.
Hopefully it's gone. I ain't dipping into that world neither. I just don't think it's going to be around
I haven't
long.
got to that world yet either. So my wife keeps sending me TikTok videos, and I can't see them. And it's like, you got to log in. I'm like, well, I haven't downloaded the app and logged in yet, so you're gonna have to send me other videos or something.
Yeah, just sometimes there's so much out there. We got enough things, and we got, you and I, we got websites to deal with. We got YouTubes and podcasts, and I'm like,
Yep.
it just consumes you, and we got fishing to do, so I don't have time to be playing on the phone.
That's correct.
It's that simple.
That's
right?
correct.
It's that simple. I know the sponsors might like you on there to do some things, but you're like, is that really my demographic? I don't know. Somewhat. There's some new anglers coming up. They're going to be on there, but our generation and most of our clients are on Facebook, and a lot of business comes through there. But we'll drop those links below to Matt's stuff. Guidance good. We talked about Matt. You got AIM tournaments you've been working up there. You've been doing pretty good on those. I think you're sitting in the top tier there, aren't you, on Team of the Year for that North Dakota AIM circuit?
We're in second right now for the Team of the Year. We had a rough one, the first one down in Bismarck on the river. Just didn't come across any big fish. Also didn't have a good path up north. I should have spent more time getting a path up north a little further, but that's the tricky part of that river, is navigating and fishing on short time too, is just trying to get a path to where you can. And usually we were able to find some bigger fish down south where I can navigate a little bit better and I know it a little bit better, but we didn't find any. So it didn't help with the way AIM points are calculated based on weight. When a guy goes and catches 51 pounds, that sucks. We knew it was going to happen. We knew somebody was going to catch him big. We knew it was going to be 40 plus something, and it could be over 50. And, we didn't find it. We were happy to get the 20 we had and call it a day, and just that didn't work out for points. But then we had a second at Audubon, and we had a third here out of Garrison. And so we're sitting in a good spot with our our kind of our bread and butter area coming out of Partial on August 11th. So we're hopeful for that. Although last year we had started off the year with a win on Audubon, and we're sitting real good and had a good tournament out in Devil's Lake and cashed a check out there, and we're sitting good for Team of the Year points and whatnot. And we sucked on our home body of water, the championship, and then the Partial tournament we sucked at. So, that it happens sometimes. So
fishing those memories, they'll get you.
Yeah, it will. And I don't know, like I said, even the Big Ten at the end of the year, last year at the end of the year, we hit a rut, just couldn't figure it out. I don't know what was going on. I said pre-fishing for the Big Ten. I had a good day pre-fishing before and thought everything was going to be good, and it wasn't. And that's just how it goes sometimes. And said you gotta learn from those and move on, and hopefully this year we can do that. I'm excited to get out to Devil's Lake for our AIM championship in September. We watched what you guys did last year out on, the NWT guys did last year in September out of there. And not saying we're going to go pull a Hoyer and pull 40 pounds out of there, in a day, but gosh, it sure looks like a lot of fun to use that forward facing sonar and go chase them around. So,
yeah, I committed to it when I went there, and I wouldn't say necessarily caught them by using it, but I pulled some lead and caught some decent fish, but kind of got it figured out. And it's a game changer. Those are the biggest bags, tournament bags I've seen come out of that place in a long time. And I think I even had a 26 or 28 on the second day, pound bag.
Yeah.
And, I was running the bird, so I couldn't see the fish in the weeds as much in one spot. Where it was next to me, I was the only one that caught him out of the weeds. And I talked to him and Tom, and they're like, "Oh no, we can see the fish in the weeds." I'm like, "Oh, I just see weeds." So I'm just casting over there, and they're coming up out of it and hitting it. They're seeing the fish, but I'm like, he's like, you got them. He's like, we didn't. So, but then we, but they also weren't there very long, and I'm like, well, they obviously could see that maybe there was only a half a dozen fish, and I got a couple, and they're like, well, that guy's got them. I'm out of here,
Yep.
But there's fish deep, there's fish shallow. You can slip bobber. I mean, that's Devil's Lake is so fun. It's kind of like Sakakawea in a sense. Why I like it so much is it's a fishery where you can do whatever you want to do.
Yep.
I mean,
it is.
Something's going to be better than something else, but do what your strength is. So,
yeah, you can usually find them. You can catch the tournament winning fish in your pattern that you want to. Like, you just got to figure them out and do it. And that, Sakakawea is the same way. You control cranks. You can cast. You can cast pitch jigs. You can cast jig and wraps. You can slip bobber. All those things. You can do it all. You just got to figure out what's the best and most efficient way to get it done. That's the key. So.
Yeah, and then Van Hook's basically like a giant lake because it's so big, and the Little Missouri's a whole another beast of its own. You can never leave the area. I mean, you could just guide the Little Missouri arm, period, or Van Hook.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely,
those are massive.
Yeah,
which is great. That you got with your clients. If you got a boatload of kids, and you talked about taking your kids out, and moderation for those that are new, and you got new kids and you want to go fishing, and dad's going to be out there all day for 8 to 10 hours. Don't take your kids out there for 8 to 10 hours. You're going to burn them out. They never want to go fishing with you again. Okay?
Yeah.
Unless they're like maybe you or I, as we were little, you couldn't get me out of the boat if I ever had a chance to get in a boat.
Yeah, that's exactly what my dad said.
To my kids.
I wouldn't get out.
2 hours,
Never asked to go in.
Yep.
But yeah, it's funny, taking kids guiding too. It's 2 hours in, and are we going to go in yet? Are we done yet? And the parents are like, no, we want to keep fishing. And I'm like, I want to keep fishing too.
Right.
Even you can be catching them like crazy.
Yep.
And they're like, are we going to go in yet? And it's like, what? Why are we? But yeah, it's just the way they are. And like I said, my dad said I was the only one that never asked. Growing up, I never asked when we're going to go in or can we quit or whatever. I never said those words. It didn't come out of my mouth. No. But it's just like, let's be out here. Let's go. Let's do it. But
you don't want to put that thought in their mind. Even you're like, leave me out here all night. I'll sleep in this thing. I don't care. Drop the anchor and we'll good. Yeah. I will fish all night. You can't have enough snacks in the boat with kids. And if they have little kids, I tell them, like, let's just do a half day. And if the other half isn't booked, we can play it by ear. But because most likely after about 2 to 3 hours, your kid's going to, you're going to want to go in.
Yeah. The one girl, she took a couple hour nap yesterday on the bow of the boat. We were trolling. She just went up there and took a nap. But the other thing, like, I don't know, it's where we talk about taking kids and, that's part of it. I wonder too on, when you get, where's a lot of times you take your kids fishing the first time, you take them fishing bluegills, panfish where you can catch 100 in an hour,
right.
Just drop it in, catch one, drop it in, catch one, drop it in, catch one. Then they think that's all you got to do is just catching, not fishing. And then you take them out, even fishing walleyes, and the walleye bite's good, and you catch one every 5 minutes. And they're like, when are we going to catch another one? When are we going to catch another one? When are we going to catch another one? But patience, that's a thing that comes with time. That comes with time. So,
but it's all part of the experience, and that's kids are going to learn that. I had 2 groups yesterday, both had kids, morning group, afternoon group, and then another group the day before with kids, and it was so. And little kids, like, they can't cast and do stuff, but I had one little older one, and she vertical jigged, and I went up on the scope, and there's a big school of white bass. I'm like, oh yeah, we got action. I said, I'll pitch it and catch one, and then just handed them the rod. And the little kids watching the screen and digging it and reeling them in. But like I said, after a while, it's okay. I need a break, whatever the case is. That they were swapping off with him and his sister, and they were catching him having a ball. Then in the older one, it's like, you want to come up here? And his grandpa's, and she's like, nope. She was locked in on that rod, and she was going to catch one her own way, and she finally did. It was like an 18-inch smallie. I looked back, and I was like, you got one biting you? And I could see it loading up, and she starts reeling, and then it flies, and she's vertical jigging in like 6 foot of water. So it's right underneath the boat. So it flies up and almost jumps over the corner, and it's all over, and finally it spits the hook. I mean, after the second time it jumped, it was like right in her face. I'm like, that's good. That's a catch. She let it go anyway. It was a big smallmouth, but she was just ecstatic, like, I've been waiting 2 hours, and I finally got one, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, you got it your way. You know, you could have came up here and caught all these white bass you wanted. Of course, you know, they were catching some walleye in the back of the boat too with her grandpa out of the weeds, but that was it. That made her whole day. She was good. She did it her way. She defeated, you know, the whole goal and made it, and it was fun. And you know, and same the second day with the kid again, was like, I don't want to fish today, but Dad sure as heck wanted to. Even though Mom took a nap and put the rod in rod holder, she caught the most fish and the biggest fish.
Isn't it funny how that happens? Happens a fair amount of times.
Holler, wake her up, and I always tell the husband, I'm like, the wife's got to catch more. You know, she's got to get the big fish. She's got to get the most fish. Just accept it. It's just how it works, because they're not ripping it out of their mouth. They're just slow to take it out, taking it, just keeping pressure on it. I'm like, just watch and learn, because it's going to happen. And 90% of the time it happens.
It does. It does a lot. We had a group the other day, and I had two of them that, or one girl, she was going to be I think she's a freshman. So going to be a freshman in high school this year. And, she had never fished before at all. And then her grandpa was in the front and her grandma was in the back, and the grandpa struggled, and the grandma and her just constant, one after the other. And it's like, he's like, I don't know, I can't seem to get bit. And he kept putting both his rods in the rod holder. He was running two rods up in the front. He's the first one of the fish. He'd set them both in the rod holder. I'm like, just hang on to it. Just hang on to one and you'll catch them. Because they, you know, the bite, it's been kind of a finicky bite. You can't just set them in the rod holder and they'll load up and hook them. You got to kind of drop it back a little bit to them and feed them, because they haven't turned it on like they normally do. So it's just, you got to be hanging on to it and feel them and then set it. But it's funny because they, you know, I do a lot of coaching too. And, like coaching middle school boys basketball versus middle school girls basketball. It's kind of crazy how the difference is there. Like in listening, middle school boys know everything about what they need to do to be in the NBA. And you don't have to matter. You can tell them whatever you want and they're going to do it their way. And then the middle school girls, a lot of times you can coach them, and sometimes they're too literal. Like you go stand on the block, and then they stand on the block and
they don't move.
What they do, you know, they move. So it's funny. And it's the same way you see it fishing too. You see the same thing happen. Like some of them know it and some of them or think they know it. And those that don't and listen, they generally do the best a lot of times on the guide trips, the ones that listen the best.
Yep. I had that happened yesterday, where the husband told the wife, hey, maybe you should just listen to the guide. He might know, you know, what's going on here. And you get that with plenty of the guys that are both to know everything. I'm like, well, then, you know, I get it. You're out here today to figure out stuff, and then you're going to stay the next 2 or 3 days in your own boat and go do your thing, which is perfectly fine. And getting those kids out there is part of it, and it's fun. And it, like you said, you've got some videos on your Facebook page of some of those kids reeling in some big Lake Sakakawea walleyes, and the smiles and that excitement from it. It could be a big drum. I mean, or snagging a 6-foot paddlefish, right? They don't care. Those are all experiences they're going to remember. And it's a fish is a fish to us. We want walleye, and we get clients that want walleye. But you get the kids, and they don't really care what it is.
Yeah. I'd one that's going to be a 6th grader on Saturday morning. He hooked into it. Well, he got the 28. He got the 28 on Friday, the 28.5. And then he was with the other guide, and we switched boats that day. So I had him, and I'm like, well, let's go get you one bigger than that measly little 28.5. And we got out there, and like he caught a little one, a dink right away. And then he hooked one, and like, it was big. And I was like, ooh, this could be it. Like, it's giving him the run. Like, I'm like, this could be it. Comes up, and it was a big old carp, and it was not the big walleye. And it was funny. He was so mad. He was so mad that it was a carp. I'm like, well, it gave you a great fight. Like, yeah, it wasn't the walleye, but and his mom was in the boat with me, and she's like, hey, you're fine. You're fine. It was a big carp. Like, you still got to fight it. That was the fun part. Like, yeah, I know, but I wanted it to be a walleye. Well, yeah, so did everybody else, but it's still the tug. The tug is the drug, man. Like,
well, he was spoiled. He already had a big walleye, so now he wants more walleye. I had little kids the other day, like they don't care what they're catching, but all of a sudden after 20 white bass, he's like, I want a walleye. You know, like, got him a walleye. and Grandpa caught one back there, this vertical jig. And I'm like, all right, well, right, then I'm going to throw these fish over here then, because those are probably walleye, not the white bass. I just wanted to get you worn out good for the ride home with Grandpa quick. So,
yeah. Funny that kid. We saw, he really wanted to catch a paddlefish. You mentioned the paddlefish. He really wanted to catch one. He was playing with the forward facing sonar, and he saw one. We saw one on the forward facing sonar, and he casted that jig wrap out there. He wanted to get it so bad. His cast wasn't close at all, but he he wasn't going to get him. But yeah, he really wanted to get a paddlefish. So maybe he's not too far out west here in Montana. So I've been told him maybe talk to his mom. Maybe we'll get him out here for the actual paddlefish season and do some of that. But
those things are tough, man. They are strong. They are a strong fish. We accidentally will hook into a couple year, on a crankbait, pulling lead or something, and it right away. It's like, that's a carp. Then I'm like, nope, that's paddlefish. We're not. We're gonna have to go get it. It's not. We're not.
We had one yesterday. We were trolling, and it started out 60 feet of line, and it went, and they start to grab the rod. I said, "Don't grab it. Don't grab it. Just start reeling the other ones." And then it came off. It didn't actually get hooked, and came off. And I think it had 110 feet of line out already. And it was quick. But it was on Facebook. I shared it again this last week. I had one that it was, I still think it was 150 pounds. It was so huge. Big. It was so big. And that's like the biggest one I've ever seen. I mean, the state record in their snagging season is 131. And I think it was 150. And I know that when we were trolling in 6-8 feet of water, and by the time we got all the other rods reeled out, it had 350 feet of line out. And
it about spooled you.
It was the chase was on, and it was driving around chasing it, and it was like we ended up going Facebook Live on it when I had it on, and it was pretty neat to just see that big of a fish. We got it unhooked, and we were trying to get it right beside the boat to lay it down there, at least in the water, and take a fishing rod and lay next to it to see how long it was. But I wish I could have got some good measurements on that fish or a weight on that one, because that thing was unbelievable. It was big. The video doesn't do it justice even without seeing it in person. It was so big. But those are we get a few, not all the time, but we do run into a few of them. But it's you can see them on the side imaging and all that stuff too. And now forward facing sonar, it's surprising how many there really are that just swim around in the lake out there all the time. They run up the river
out like
oh yeah,
they fly out like dolphins, man. They'll just full up. I mean, sturgeon do the same thing. They're huge fish, and they fly 4 or 5 feet out of the water sometimes. I mean, it's massive.
I wish I knew why. I really don't understand why, but I always ask the clients always, why do they do that? I said, just because I'll see one and be like, oh, there's a paddlefish jump. I said, just watch over there. You'll see one. If you just watch over there today when we're fishing, you'll see one jump for sure. And
I mean, you just getting a bunch of oxygen, or you taking a big swipe at everything on the surface, and they're obviously going for the plankton, but I don't know. Or are you just playing around? Are you just whatever? I want to see what the guides are doing today. Where's Matt?
Yeah,
there he is. Right. They come back down. You mentioned Bismarck in the spring. Awesome place. There's a couple guides down there, obviously. Those fish. So a lot of these Hawaii fish, people that go up Bismarck area on the Missouri River and spawn, and that's just a phenomenal place to go. I've never been able to go there. April-ish usually is when that's kind of going.
Yeah, April and then into May. Yeah.
North of Bismarck, south of Bismarck, or is this throughout the whole area? I mean, is there like a 50-mile stretch that just loads up with them?
Yeah, so like I said, I don't get down there too much, but yeah, they'll load up, anywhere, like kind of time them. But there'll be some big ones. I know lately, the last few years, north of Bismarck, they're getting some big ones, and right in town too. They'll say they'll get them big ones in there, and then south down towards Hazelton and all that stuff. So they just you kind of have to time it right. And those guys down in Bismarck, they can fish there all the time. They kind of know where they're at. And it's no different than up here. Like when the bite starts on Sakakawea, that, you catch them up here way up west, and then, you just follow them as they head back down the lake,
All right.
back towards Newtown, and then down south of Newtown, and then back to catch them when they're starting to head up into the arm or further down the lake. People that are on them at those times, they kind of know where that big fish line is, and you just kind of have to find that line. But there's a lot of fish up and down that river, and it changes every year too. When you get ice jams and stuff like that, it changes everything, and so the spots change too. So it's tricky to, some of the spots stay the same, but a lot of them change and the path changes. So that's a little bit of a tricky one there. If you're a river rat, you got a nice polished skag on your boat, and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's the closest area to the chutes of Lewis and Clark that I fished. That's somewhat similar, where it changes every year. The current moves what little tiny channel there is. You're running super skinny water. You're in between sandbars, little areas. Your best bet is to get on plane and fly. But if you're on plane and fly and you go too far left, sometimes I've done it where the boat's really sitting like this, and you're done. Your boat's barely in the water, so you're gonna wait for a couple guys to push and a boat to pull, and hopefully that'll get you out, or a big wind or something comes. But usually when your boat's sitting tilted, you're screwed.
That's not good.
I've done that once, and I had a trail. I just took my outfit for a second, and I slid over just a little bit and went, oh crap. I have two options: immediately stop, which means you're going to go bam.
Yep.
I went with plan B, which was floor it and start trimming up and try to just plow, and it didn't matter. I was stuck either way. So
yeah, I've only bumped it a couple times down there, running around down there in Bismarck, but we don't have near as bad as sandbars up here on the river. Up by Williston, it's pretty navigable for a lot of the stuff. Some of the Yellowstone's tricky, but I had a moose tag a couple of years ago, so hunted down on the river down here and had a little boat running the backwaters and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, they're just going to send it and get out and push the little boat out. We got stuck lots of times hunting moose down here, but that was fun. That was fun, but
panned out for you too. You got a good one, I believe.
Yeah, that river's fun, and I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, though, especially if you're running around in a big fancy boat. Like, you got to be a little nervous running those things around.
Yep, so, it just isn't worth it. You need to get there early and spend some time making new trails and going upstream. Mm-hmm. I always say go upstream and just kind of poke your nose and find it and save that trail and put it in a new solid line color, and you'll be good to go. But you got to remember where all those little nubs are. Follow the right one. So
I try to
before we wrap this up.
Go ahead.
Yep. Exactly. Before we wrap up, we got big tournament coming to your neck of the woods here pretty soon, end of the month. August 1st, 2nd, I think, National Walleye Tour. I'll be up there. I think the 23rd, we're coming up to fish the Dakota Walleye Classic. Then you got the NWT, and then you got the Casino Cup the day after, and then you got like 4 more tournaments, I think, don't you? Just boom, 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 back to back.
The weekend after that, like the 10th, August 10th is the EMS one that goes out of Van Hook, and then the AIM on the 11th out of Partial Bay. So all in that same area. Also, you throw in the August 10th, there's a women on water out of White Earth Bay, but you can't go south of the bridge. So that keeps that one big island called Shell, that secret island called Shell, that everybody knows.
Yeah, big secret.
But that
thing's hundreds of boats on it every day.
That thing's going to take some pressure here in late. The DWC doesn't go there, but the NWT can, the Casino can, the EMS can, the AIM can. There's going to be, let's see, 1, 2 NWTs, EMS, 4, 5 tournament days in a matter of 9 days. Because what's it? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because that's the NWT's Thursday, Friday, Casino Saturday, and then the following Saturday, Sunday. So it's like 10 days, 5 tournament days in 10 days, and throw all the pre-fishing in there and stuff. That section of the lake's going to have a little bit of pressure, and I think there's going to be, especially towards the end of it, you're going to have something different.
Some new spots. Yeah, you're definitely
going to have some new spots, or something. Whether it's could be something down to like 4-pound test type of deal, and and long
Right.
cast type of thing or something with the forward facing sonar. Cause I mean, NWT guys, they get it you guys are going to get it fresh. I still haven't decided if I'm going to put my name in that one or not, because I'm supposed to start my new job that week. I told them I'd start in August, and well, that's August 1st. So we'll see. I have to talk with my new boss about that one. But
I have a feeling you're gonna make it happen. So
yeah, it's hard to say certainly, or hard to say no to that one for sure.
yep.
But yeah, so it's
Well,
going to be interesting because the NWT will have kind of the first run in that section on for tournament wise compared to, the last tournament was the Van Hook Classic, which was 3 weeks ago already. So that some of the tournament pressure won't be on it, but that, like I said, Shell in that area, Pouch, Van Hook, that gets a bunch of pressure all summer. So it's gonna be interesting. And there's gonna be the NWT. There's gonna be guys that catch some real big fish close to Garrison, because there's big fish out there too. I mean, we just had our AIM tournament out there. It's 37 pounds to win out there. And those fish don't leave. They're not leaving to go up to the arm area. So there's still big fish down there. I think the key or the question is going to be, and I don't know, the NWT, do they have to be alive? Because North Dakota Game and Fish doesn't give catch and release permits in the months of July, August. In July and August, they don't. I know that.
Nope.
So
It'll be
your fish won't need to be alive. Then it's a different game, because you could end up having some real deep fish out on that end. And obviously, the other game that's going to be is you don't have any fish to play with. So what are you going to keep?
Yep.
And that's where I worry about with the East End, because some years now we've had colder water this year, so it might not get to that point. Last year the fish were Governor's Cup and stuff in the DWC. A lot of guys were fishing 40 plus feet to get those fish, and you got a lot of mortality when you're bringing fish up from that depth. And you can catch a big one, and that one might not, you fight it for a while. It takes a while to get that change. It might not have its belly up, but you get a 12-incher, 18-incher on a jig wrap down that deep, and you rip it right to the surface, because it's not what you want anyways. And that's got to, hopefully guys are, a little bit more conservation minded on that stuff, but it's going to be tough. I don't know. So, but there's going to be guys that find them close. I mean, there's not going to be guys that need to go the 50, 60 miles to the arm.
Yeah, it's so what we AIM championship obviously was like almost 40-pound bags a day, different format. History wise, the last couple NWTs we've had there, it's taken mid upper 40s after a 2-day total.
But yeah, I think it was 48.
We have 5 fish. We don't have one to play with. 48.
Yeah, I think it was
Northrop won it, and then
when Northrop won, and Dewey I think was like 44, 45. And like I said, that one was interesting or tough. Those weights would have been way bigger had we been closer, not having to run 80 miles or shoot. Dewey was 90 plus miles away. I went 110. You were a little.
I went closer. 68.
You went 68.
Yeah, I was close.
Oh, you had to be a little farther than that. It had to be. Well, it's 8. You weren't.
I didn't need.
I think it was got to be about 74. Something like that.
I wasn't past the bridge, so
I know you. It's 80. It's 80 to the bridge.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah, I was probably. I thought my thing said 68, but it could have been.
Yeah,
I made certain cuts though to make it,
Oh yeah,
as minimal as possible.
Absolutely, cutting as tight as you can, cutting across a 4-foot corner there on the at times to save a quarter mile if you can.
I think we're gonna have bigger bags this time around. Obviously, Scopins, everything's coming in bigger, and there's a lot of big fish.
I mean, we're seeing those fish that we still have that a really good year class of those. Not it's not huge, but there's a lot. The bigger fish, the tournament weights are up generally overall. So I think like I said, you're going to see some weights. I don't know. I said the live scopers they're gonna get them. It took 40 a day for the AIM one to win that one, but again, that's a different format. That what they're going to keep that's going to be the big question. What are they going to keep? And, are they, I don't know, with 5 fish, nothing to play with, a 23 incher is a tough decision at the beginning of the day. A fat 23 incher that weighs 4.5 pounds. That's a real hard decision. And, the guys that are in the top 10 of the, in the point standings and stuff, they don't have to worry about it as much as the guys who are closer to that top 40 cut. They're going to have some tougher decisions to make. The other guys who are the locals that are jumping in, they don't care. They're going to swing, right? They're going to swing for it.
Yep.
Some of those guys, and
I'm swinging.
So they're going to swing and go. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, somebody's going to get 30 in a day. Like you're going to get 30. Oh, yeah. Somebody's going to get a 30-pound bag. Because they're going to catch them in the right order and they're going to get a 30-pound bag. Can they get 30 and 25? I don't know. I don't know. It just, the live scope guys, the scopers, the forward-facing guys, they're going to need to, I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see how well they do. And like I said, I'm not going to claim to be a forward-facing sonar expert at all, because I'm not. And, I use it. I have it in the water all the time, but I'm not what those guys are. That's for sure. I just haven't had the time to sit and pick it apart like they have, and that type of thing. So hopefully, we'll see what'll happen. But I think I would say probably, I don't think it'll be 60 to win, but it'd be between 50 and 55 would be my 55. Guess probably.
Yeah, I mean, a 22-pound, 25-pound bag was usually pretty darn good. I know I've had some 22s, and I put you in the top 5, But yeah. I'm thinking now you're going to need 25, like I said, 25 to 30. And you get lucky enough they come in the right order. That's really what you need. But that's what practice and pre-fishing is all about. So you determine what maybe a 23 is going to be huge for you, because that's all you caught to practice was your big fish. But obviously, if you're on some big ones, it's going to help make your decision. And like you said, the snipers, as we call the locals, are all in, got nothing to lose, going for the win. Makes decisions easier. If you're guys like me that are sitting at 50th or whatever, and we need a top 5 or to win it to even make the championship, kind of in the same boat, not fishing for a check, fishing, to make a big wave. Yeah, they got to be big fish, but it all boils down to practice. Ask everybody that question prior to Green Bay, then you ask about Green Bay, and they're like, I just hope to catch a fish. At this point, that was horrible. I don't foresee that happening at Sakakawea. It's pretty much good all the time, but no, that won't be the issue. So
no, that won't be the issue. It'll be the question of what to keep. And you look at the previous year's casino cups. It takes, in that casino tournament. We won it a couple of years ago. It was 6 fish though you could weigh. I think they're at 5 now. Are they at 6? I don't remember.
No, I think it's still 6.
So 6, it's been anywhere between like 29 and 33 pounds that win that one day thing with 6. So, that was, before the real forward facing sonar stuff. So, it could be around that 50 range, that tip, cause that's the same time frame, but I don't know. It'll be, like I said, I'm interested to see what some of those guys do and how they figure out some of those fish. And I don't know, there's a suspended bite out chasing smelt and stuff in areas. And, I don't know if that's a forward facing sonar opportunity or not. I haven't explored it.
Oh yeah.
But what I've seen with that suspended bite is I'll get it to go one day, and the next day they are gone. Like they are absolutely not there. The smelt has moved somewhere else. And there was one year in the DWC, that tournament. I mean, me and my brother were fishing it. And I almost didn't go the last day of pre-fishing because I was so confident. Like we were crushing them. And my other tournament partner, Tori, and my other friend, Josh, that I fished with some too, and 2 best friends, they were fishing to get together. So we were, kind of working together for that one. And we were so confident going in, and it wasn't all a suspended bite, but we done some suspended too in the pre-fish, and we were just catching them all over the place. And we're like, we're gonna be in the top 10, both of us for sure. Like we were so confident in it. But my brother hadn't pre-fished with me at all that week. He had to work, and then he was coming back for the one day before the tournament, and he's like, dude, you can't just send me all these big fish pictures all week and then not go show me it before the tournament.
Not go.
So I'm like, all right, so we'll go and do that. We'll go out, and we left the boat ramp at 5 a.m. in the dark. And I was like, we're going out here, and I don't want anybody seeing us. So we're going to go. And so we went out there, and both Tori and Josh, and we went out there, and they started on one end, we started on the other, and we were trolling cranks, and we were working towards each other. And they call at me about 7 o'clock, and they're like, have you caught any yet? I said, nope, not a one. He goes, us either. We're like, uh-oh. And those fish were gone. Like, I was planning to be off the water at 9 o'clock in the morning the day before the tournament, and I loaded the boat at 3:30, and we had the rules meeting at 5. Like, it's like, I gotta get to town and get to the rules meeting and get that taken care of. So I was like, man, we did end up finding some fish that day, but it was, I don't know, every time I've had some real good suspended bites on some of that smelt and stuff, but I can't ever put it 2 days in a row. And so, somebody might be able to figure that out, but it changes too. So it'll be interesting to see.
It's tough. That's tough. It's going to be a lot of boat traffic, so it's going to get them moving, and it's a river, so nothing stays in the same place too long.
You say a lot of boat traffic. In certain areas, there's going to be a lot of boat traffic, but there's also, you can find a lot of areas that you could fish by yourself and do that. But it's such a huge body of water to cover to find those other areas that aren't as popular, and that, people to have the time to do that. Even you guys coming out, NWT guys that come out practice for 6 days or whatever, some of the guys do 6, 7, 8 days, however long they come out. Some of those guys, like, they can't cover it all, even with a bunch of them. Like,
not even close.
So that's where it comes down to is, can you pick it off? And, I have a few other areas too that I wonder about and that I know I can get some big fish off of, but again, can it compete with the areas that everybody knows? And those are some of the, some of the questions that you have to answer in pre-fish.
The challenges with the big water in a place we've only been to twice, so not a lot of people have a ton of experience. So the locals always have the upper hands on rivers in general. Like yourself, you got an upper hand on it because you know the body of water, and maybe you don't get a whole lot of practice in, but you know what few places hold big fish that doesn't have a lot of boat traffic. And like I said, it's too much for a few guys, or even 4, 5, 6 days of practice. You can't cover it all. You got to commit to a few areas, or unless you have a large team, you could break down sections. That's really the only way. And if you catch a big one here, your other big one might be 70 miles away, and how are you gonna manage that throughout the day if you're spot A and B? That's kind of the problem I always had with the Green Bay is you got two good spots, but they're 40, 50 miles apart. And it's like, sometimes it's the realization of the Green Bay is, okay, one's one day and the other one's the next day, because I can't get them in the same spot 2 days in a row. So Sakakawea is, a little different, but you got to pay attention to the wind and so many things. Obviously it's a big reservoir, so wind's going to dictate how far you're going and how much time you're going to get a fish. So
like I said, we've had a real windy year so far, and it can certainly happen anytime. It's not, to say we don't have big winds in July or August isn't true. We have some big winds those days too, and that'll change stuff too. And it, like, they don't the big winds, the waves stack up, and so it's not easy running. It's not like you can run the troughs or big northwest, and it's a long ways from that corner at the Little Missouri Arm to Garrison. That's a long 40 miles, and that's a long boat ride with the big southeast or a big northwest, which are our two winds, and those are some big waves that get out there. So that'll be I don't know if people will make those trips, and that's the big question. If how hard's the wind going to blow and that kind of stuff too. So
how bad do you want it? So it's That's what it comes down to. All right, we've been going at it for a long time. We could talk for another hour. We could tell all sorts of guide stories that we talked about before we even got on here. So
Yeah,
give out
that's true.
the PSA on quit. Give the guide some room out there. We don't own the water, but please give us a little space sometimes. That's all. That's all we
Yeah.
ask. So before we leave, everybody, you got a little tip or nugget to leave these folks with to help them on their angling journey?
The big thing is just, our biggest thing, especially like this year, is fish the day. And I get a lot of people, a lot of messages asking what depth I'm catching them in. That's probably the most common question that I get is, what depth are you catching them in? How deep are they? And I've had that question a lot this year, and it's one day I'll catch them in 6 to 8 feet, and the next day I'm catching them in 26. And I mean, I've caught fish out to 35. I generally try not to go out that deep. I try to stay under 30, just for ease of fishing and all that stuff. But I mean, they kind of said they have fins, they move, and trust your electronics and use those things, because we spend so much money on them. Like, use that thing to, and trust it and get to learn it. And if you don't know how to use it, I know Corey Heiser does some different Lowrance electronics classes, and there's people different. Johnny Candles does some, I don't know if he does any on the water stuff, but he has some classroom stuff he does with his hummingbirds. And but there's YouTube videos and things like that. But you got to learn to trust those electronics, and the best thing is just to get out there and use it. And if you need to go and pull into a community hole where people are catching them, we'll do it. Then you can learn and what they're looking at, and then you can start to figure that out and just fish the day, because fishing memories is generally not great. Like, yeah, they can be there, but just you can't go pull onto that spot. I watched a lot of boats pull into the same spot every time to start the day, and they fish for an hour, and give that spot an hour, and they don't catch anything. They leave. It's like, why'd you give that spot an hour? There was nothing there. So that'd probably be my
scan it and move on.
Scan it and move on, and don't get married to a spot, and just fish the day, because the reservoir fish are here today, gone tomorrow, and they're notorious for that. And even in the Van Hook Arm, they do it. And so that would be probably my biggest takeaway that I see, is just trust those electronics and fish the day, rather than going off memories or what somebody told you yesterday. And I still ask other guides, and we talk about where we caught them yesterday to kind of give us an idea. But I've pulled into many spots and they're not there, so I don't even fish it. So.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself. Fish the day. I get the same question, and I'll look at them and say 2 to 20. They're depends on how you want to fish and whatever, but they're everywhere, especially this time of year. You got some
I don't want people thinking
deep,
that we're being like a-holes with that answer,
right.
But it's like that's legit what it is. Like, it's not, said I could go over to the riverside and catch them up shallow, and 8 to 12, and then today I was down the Van Hook side and I caught them in 20 to 26. Like, it's it just depends on where you are and what structure you're fishing, and there's lots of variables. So use the tools that you have.
And I'll be like, well,
the electronic.
Trust your electronics. Been beating on that dead horse for a long time, and it gets the same question: where'd you catch? How you catching me? Cranking? And I'm like, yeah, I cranked for an hour and caught some, and I flip bobbered or I jigged and I pulled bouncer. I mean, look at the boat; it's a disaster, because every one of these things was used today, and every one of them worked in all sorts of different depths. Why they all work? Because the electronics said there's fish there, so fish them. But fish today. Oh, the wind picked up. Now maybe it's too windy to do what I want to do. Now I have to troll. So,
Yep.
But that's. You heard it from the master himself, Matt Liebel, Liebel's Guide Service up at Lake Sakakawea. We'll put some links to Matt's Guide Service below. Check him out on Facebook. Head over to his website. Give Matt a call. Get on Lake Sakakawea. You won't be disappointed. I can promise you that. That place is awesome. His Guide Service is awesome. They do a great job. It is my favorite lake for a lot of reasons, mainly because it's I won a lot of money there, so I'm going to keep coming back. So, but who knows? There's 3 tournaments in just like 10 days. I might ruin my whole streak and just be like, I'm never going back. No, that's not going to happen. I'm always going to go back to Sakakawea, and can't wait to get back up there that first week in October for the Big Ten, my favorite tournament of the year, because it is with Matt and Chris and a bunch of other just great guys. And staying over there with George, the best host there is, and Jeff runs a phenomenal tournament. It's just very smooth, very fun. I think everybody just enjoys it, and a good payout. So we need to filled up. So check that out too. Big Ten, Lake Sakakawea Big Ten tournament. First week in October like 6th, 7th, I think this year. Something like that.
6th, 7th,
it's always the first
5th, something like that. Yeah, it's right in there.
Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday. Yeah. The first year they had it a 2-day, it was Saturday, Sunday, but then they moved it to Friday, Saturday.
Moved it back Friday. That's right. Usually get home.
I got to get that one figured out. That one's kicked my butt a couple times. I need to. That's close. I don't even have to go very far. It's 20 miles from my house.
No.
Like that, I should be able to figure that one out a little better.
Consistency. That's what I've always told Buck. There's not a lot of big fish, but it's just being consistent. That 12 to 15 pounds a day. You can have a 20-pound day, but every time that happens, those guys catch 0 the next day. You know, Lord knows. I remember the first time there, we had snow on the ground. This couple years ago, it was 2 most beautiful October days. It was like 70, 65, and flat calm both days, which just made for a blast. But every time I've been there, we've caught fish. Got a lot of fish, good fish. A lot more not great weather days than good weather days. But it's North Dakota in October. I mean, that's what you're going to get, right? Yeah. It's the Dakotas. Yep. It's going to be windy. So, all righty. Yep. Well, thank you, Matt. I know we've been on here a while, and you got a day off tomorrow, so good for you. I'm heading back. Today was my day off. Still just finished up drying my basement out from all the flooded stuff and putting it back together today, and getting ready for a garage sale over the 4th to unload some of this fishing and hunting gear I got piling up after moving a bunch of stuff from the wet carpet. I'm like, we got to down. We got to eliminate some of this stuff and get rid of it. No water damage except carpet, thankfully.
That's good, because I just got done with the 2-year redoing our basement because that flooded. I'm happy to be done with that, but the bills don't end on that. That's the unfortunate part. Still got to pay for it.
It sucks. Yep. Yeah. My basement fully finished when I built this house like 8 years ago, and it was just sump pump failed, and we got Sioux Falls got hit with 18 inches of rain, and when your sump pump don't work, even though it's never took a drop of water in it until that time, and of course when it never has to get used, it doesn't work. But it is what it is. So, but looking forward to seeing you soon. I'll be up there, like I said, on the 23rd. I'm going to cram in some tournament fishing and hope you get on the NWT. If not, you'll probably get a day to come jump in with me, and we'll go do some fishing or something. So,
all right.
We'll put these nitros to the test out there. So thanks again. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk Fishing, and stay safe, and we'll see you on the water.